How's it going, everybody? I'm Cory Flowers. I'm with Flowers Custom Airbrush. Today we're going to be doing a demo of how to paint fire. The first thing I would do when you start out trying to paint fire is to get you some good reference pictures so that way you can see what the flames are doing. I got these off the Airbrush forum. They were posted up there before the forum crashed. I'm going to try to find some and post them on my website. But the first thing I'm going to tell you is I use House of Color paint. They have a nice kit that you can get off of TCP Global for $100, and you get all the colors that you need to do this. I'll post right now the list of all the colors that you need to do this, and then I'll start explaining some of the things that you need to do when you're actually thinking about painting flames. Okay, so what I always look at is when you look at these flames, no matter what flames you look at, they always go apart and come back together. And that's a hard line every single time. So what I'll do is I'll lay out my basic shape of the flame and then come back with my stencil and sharpen that line. And then you'll see that the orange in the background will give you that depth. And the reason why I use House of Color paint is because they have candy colors, and to be honest with you, that is the secret to painting fire, because it fades all of your colors automatically for you, and then you'll have thousands of different color combinations rather than using red, yellow, and orange and white. So I hope this helps you guys out. I'm going to get paint. Okay, so as I stated before, what you want to do is pick out, a good picture of some flames that you want to paint, and then lay out your design before you ever even start thinking of what the flame's actually going to be looking like. Because what you want to do is you want to go really loose and then tighten it back up as you go. So when you first start painting and it doesn't look like flames, don't get discouraged, because that's the way it's supposed to look. As you get closer to the back of the flame, you want to get closer in, and then just tighter lines. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll start out here, kind of get the basic shape of my lines, and then come back in. And what you're going to want to do is you want to connect it all together. And I think a lot of what people's problem is, they just try to go and paint flames and they don't actually give any forethought of how they're going to actually lay it out. And so then you run into the problem of not being able to make your flames look as good as you would like them to. I forgot to mention, this is my brand new airbrush. I just purchased it. I'm really liking it. It's the Velocity, Renegade Velocity by Badger. You can get really tight lines, and you can also get some wide ones. So it's a really nice airbrush for getting in close. I would recommend using a different brush for more general, wider patterns. But for what I'm doing, painting on small panels and things like that, this is the perfect brush for that. And what you want to do is you just want to keep doing this until, you feel comfortable with your layout and how it looks. Because what you want to do is just go loose to tight. And so just lay out a basic design. Who cares what it looks like? You're not going to be perfect the first time you do it anyways. Okay, so the next color you're going to do is candy apple red. What this is going to do is it's going to push this back. You'll still have orange, but this red will push it back a little bit further. Because what you want to do is, with these layers, you push it back, pull it forward, push it back, pull it forward, push it back, pull it forward, until you get the desired effect. And that isn't just for flames, that's for everything you're painting. Okay, you're going to go back to Molly Orange. This is where I start introducing some stencils in. Start picking up some of my lines and getting them tighter. And like I said, you push it back, pull it forward. Now, what I'm going to start doing is looking at my references and start pulling some of these flame licks forward. The ones that I like and I want to keep, now's the time to keep them. Whereas before, you know, you're just laying it out. Like I said, who cares? Because you can always push it away and you'll never see it again. Okay, so that right there, that's a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier. The flame comes apart, comes back together, goes apart, comes back together. And it does that all the way down the flame, so don't overdo the stencil. Just get your hard lines that you want, and then come back, and then run you some lines on the edge, and that'll get you to where you don't look like you, because the idea is to make it look like it's not stencil. And see, like this spot here, I don't like it so much, so I'm going to make it disappear because I can. And then that part becomes background noise that you'll see here in a second when I put some more candy on. You'll still be able to see it, but it'll look like it's back further. Go apart, come back together. Okay, so now we're going to come in with some candy tangerine, which is going to be it just makes your orange more bright, because right now it looks like it's kind of dry, and it just gives it that wet kind of transparent look. Because you'll see when I put this candy on there, the darks will get darker, the brights will get brighter. Another little trick is what I do is I'll hit my hard lines first, so that way they get more of the orange, and then I'll go over the whole thing. So that way I guess you're getting a double dose on your hard lines. And if you're painting on black, you don't have to be really concerned with overspray and such, because I'll show you once we get towards the end, I'll show you how to clean that up as well. Typically you want to use a tack cloth to go ahead and clean off the extra, but since we're on black, we're good to go. Okay, so now I think you can see, and I mean typically you guys want to be wearing a respirator. I'm not, because I'm doing a video and I want you guys to understand what I'm doing. So that's why I'm not wearing my respirator right now, because I want you to be able to hear me. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your chrome yellow and hit these hard lines, and I'll show you that here in a second. Okay, so we're going to go in here with our chrome yellow. We're going to find the licks that we really like. I'm going to bring them right to the front of the page. And see what this does is, as you hit the edge of the stencil, it gives you that really crisp hard line. But what you want to do is spray onto the stencil and let your overspray push away from your line, so that way you get those awesome fades. And basically what it boils down to is, the longer you hold your airbrush in one spot, as you can see right there, the yellow got brighter. So what you're wanting to do is you want to hit your stencil about right here with your airbrush gun. Now sometimes you're going to have to go back and forth a couple times to get the brightness that you're looking for, but it's well worth the time and effort. And again, notice how the flames go away from each other and come back together. And what you always want to do is, whatever stencil you're using, you want to go back and find whatever one you used, so that way you can get the same line. On occasion, I will go and find a different layout, because sometimes that looks pretty cool too. But as you use these stencils and get used to what you're doing, you'll be able to find the lick that you used in the first place. See how that kind of came down a little bit? I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Things like that happen. Don't even sweat it, because it ain't no big deal. And sometimes, like I was saying earlier, you want to find the same lick. Sometimes you don't, because like as for this one, I didn't want it to be as bright as some of the other lines, because they're not all going to be really bright. But if you see how this one lays over the top of the other ones that were there, that gives you some background. Some background. Okay, and so like now I'm kind of running into a spot where I'm getting tighter to the end of the flame, but I've got an open area right here. So what I'll do is I'll take my stencil and I'll find a small piece, because what I've done is I've went and had stencils that I've designed laser cut, so that way I can do this, because I've been doing this for years, and so I know what I want. But so I'll go in there and just find, you know, something to close that flame off, and then I'll come back in there and freehand a lick off of it, so that way it carries off into nothing. And see, like right now what I'm doing is I'm going in there, I'm barely hitting it, so that way it gives you the appearance that it's multi-dimension, because I mean you can still see the orange clear back there, but then you bring the yellow up in front of what you're painting, and so it starts to look like flames. And sometimes I'll lay out the flames freehand like this and make my hard lines, and they look kind of foggy. But a lot of times if you come back in there with a stencil afterwards, then it'll make it look really awesome as well. And I try to have both in there, so that way, you know, it appeals to people who don't like the stencil look, and it appeals to people who do. Here's a spot where I'm talking about. Goes apart. Comes back together. Because ultimately what you want to do is have everything taper back together. And so these flames all have to run back together. Okay, so there you have it. That's pretty much it. Now I'm going to come back in here with Pagan Gold. We got 2 more layers to go, so just bear with me. I know it takes a long time, but if you want to paint something that looks awesome, it takes a long time. It takes a long time to get there, and it takes a long time to paint it. So that's why you always want to get paid. And I know it looks like my orange has disappeared, but it hasn't. Okay, so one problem you don't want to run into, and I know this looks like the yellow is too much, and I've done it 100 times, where I'll just put a little bit of yellow, then I'll go and spray my Pagan, and I think that I have too much orange in there, and I wish I would have put more yellow. So you got to find the happy medium that you like. Okay, so now I'm going to go back in here and clean up the overspray that I was telling you about. Don't worry about making mistakes, because you can always fix them, especially when you're painting on black. Sometimes you take a tack cloth, and if you wipe very, very, very gently, you can get rid of some of it. But the best way is to have the base color, whatever you're painting, whatever color you're painting, have the base color with you, because that's one of the most important things there is. When I started painting fire so long ago, the hardest part that I could not figure out was how to close my flames off. Base coat. Because it's so easy to just go in there and taper off the edges of your flames with the black or whatever color it is that you're using. That's how everybody gets these smooth, crisp lines at the edge of their flames to make it look like real fire. Just a little tip: don't get over concerned with trying to figure it out all at the first time you try to paint flames. I've painted thousands and thousands and thousands of different paintings where all I wanted to do was paint flames. That's all I ever wanted to do. That's all I want to do now. And so this is what I specialize in. So I mean, you're going to have to practice. And one of the most important things is to learn how to control your brush, because once you learn how to control your brush and you learn how to paint these flames, if you've watched any of my other videos, you can see I can paint just about anything I want. And that's strictly from learning how to paint flames. Lastly, sign your work. Be proud of who you are.